It's different. Last time I just like did it. However, I kept it true. I did pick a topic talking about astrology, right? That's what I want to talk about, more or less. But I have literally no notes whatsoever. I have something in my mind I could talk about, hoping kind of that I'm going to derail this conversation somehow myself, just getting a little off track. But I thought about talking about the logos of astrology. Like, is it logical to believe in astrology, right? And because some say like, yeah, there's big planets out there. They somehow have to be magnetic and whatnot. Look what they do to the ocean, right? And some say, well, it has been proven that, it doesn't really work like that. And probably both of them are correct. But how does that work exactly, right? The question is, what is logos actually, right? What is logic? Because most of the time when I'm having like metaphysical conversations, people confuse logical and rational or cognitive. Those are completely different words, right? And different meanings for that matter. Maybe I should turn up the light a little. Never mind. Now let's get back to it. Because not everything that is logical is reasonable or comprehensible, right? So there's a logic to the chaos, right? Logic demands that there has to be an order to the chaos. And that is what logos, the Greek word logos, is talking about, actually. It is the order in the chaos. It is the form of divine reason, so to speak. And yes, I did look that up, but just to make sure that I kind of get it right, you know. But logos, and for that matter, logic, doesn't exactly mean something being comprehensible or even reasonable. Because reason is related to morals, right? It's related to how we interact with each other and whatever, right? Whether it's a reasonable decision, it has to do with like conscience, for example, right? So it's moral philosophy question. But logos is something different. Logos is basically postulating that there's a set of rules underneath all of this, right? Whether we understand it or not. It is basically the principal assumption of any scientific method is there has to be a pattern. Let's see if we find it, right? So that's the funny thing, that we're looking for that logos, but it might not be comprehensible to us at all, but we can still calculate with it. Like physicists do it all the time. They calculate with an infinity symbol. It's like, okay, we cannot comprehend it. We're still like using the variable. You know, we kind of know how it behaves. Our mind is just too like simple minded, small minded to comprehend what it actually means. But it has to be somewhat infinite. And that's a funny thing about that. When we're talking about why astrology is actually, well, logical, even if the logic falls back onto a reasoning that is still beyond proof for us, in a sense. Because, well, talking about proof is also an interesting thing, right? Because for some, proof is only what is empirically proven, right? What you can measure. I would argue that this is the simplest and weakest form of proof, is what you can measure, because it's always inductive. What you can measure is always upon a sample size, right? You only measure a fraction of the all. But if you have an argument that is logically linked to an outcome or whatever, that is logically sound, then that must be a way better proof than anything you can measure, right? And this is where I kind of, well, tie back into this astrology thing. I do make a case for astrology here. Of course, I'm a tarot reader. Like, what did you expect? Of course, I'm a fan of astrology, but basically for the same reason I'm a fan of tarot, because it's just like everything else is a basic expression of archetypes, of patterns, right? And I do like patterns because they're everywhere, and those patterns are all we have, or the closest thing we have to realize ourselves and the world we live in. Like postulating that they somehow are based on the same rules, right? So my argument for or against astrology, whatever, is not exactly that. It's not exactly that there are magnets in the sky, right? It's not about the waves that the moon sort of, or that relate to the moon, whatever. My argument would be that the movement of the planets has to be subject or a product of the same flow of time space as we are. So it's not so much a causality, but rather a correspondence of the same logos at play, right? So I wouldn't argue that we're like magnetically influenced by the planets. While that may be the case, it is not exactly my argument why this is something to look at, why astrology is definitely like a set of rules that plays out in different ways in this reality. I mean, like, yes, there are ways to like manipulate yourself into thinking that you're always right with the star sign. Yeah, well, because we all are a part of every star sign, right? And it comes out in different situations in life, whatever. But not to get lost in the sauce here, the initial argument basically is that astrology is, just like anything else, an expression of the cosmic flow, of the cosmic sequence, let's say. None more, none less, right? And that is the interesting thing. So if we look at how the planets move, then we kind of can use it as a metaphor to see how our lives must move. Not because they're influenced by it, but because on another level, on a meta level, they must obey the same rules, right? And then thinking about that, the concept of planets, whether they are round or real or whatever, on another level, I do believe they're both, right? It's just like, okay, that's a little abstract, but imagine imagine a planet is a sphere, but only if you interact with the program, because when it comes down to it, everything is ones and zeros, or yin and yang, on and off, whatever you want to call it, right? So the moment you're not participating in a program, it only exists as an idea, quite literally, right? So the philosophers were not off by a mile. No, they were spot on. That's like, imagine like in GTA, or like any open world 3D game for that matter. You ride across, or like you drive through the landscape, and the landscape is building up. And when and that's basically how the world is made. It's a hologram. And if there's no one participating in the illusion, right, or the hologram, it's not exactly an illusion. Illusion is something different, right? There's a difference between a hologram and illusion that's quite profound. But for another time, just imagine the world around you builds up as you see it, or as someone sees it, right? As long as there is an observer, right? Then the world can exist. If there's no observer, only the idea of something exists, and the set of rules that makes it coherent with what you are experiencing. But it's basically like a program that is not played, just like in a computer, right? Just like when you're playing a video game, you would say, yeah, the map is there, right? The map you are going through is already there. It exists somehow in a set of rules, but it only comes to life when you're playing it, right? And now imagine the entire world works like that. Imagine everything you experience works like that, right? So if it all comes down to, or if truth comes down to how many people participate in a program to make it more and more true for more and more people, in a sense, then the planets represent a construct that has been adopted and observed by so many people over the ages and in the current moment. We're all subject to it, right? That has to mean something. You cannot you cannot look away from that. Like, there is a sun, there is a moon, there's other things that we can experience and do. And it's funny that there are references to solar objects, or whatever you want to call it, yeah, like planets and stars and whatever, that from ages where people couldn't even see them, right? Like, it doesn't exactly make sense, does it? That's going into like the ancient aliens kind of category, and I do believe all of it could possibly be real. And then the next question is, does it matter if it is, or is it just to challenge our current belief system? And that's the only thing that should matter, is like to be open to a new reality, or even like not only to a new future, but also to a new past, right? But just to come, like, not get too far off track here, coming from that holographic model of everything being subject to a sequence, or like everything being a sequence that is subject to a cosmic logic, logos, right? A cosmic flow, a cosmic set of rules that is playing out, then astrology shows us very simply how the flow of these things, of these concepts work. And since also with mysticism, there has been so many meanings fortified within those narratives, that whether or not they are scientifically proven, empirically proven, or even like reasonable, whatever, they are something to be reckoned with. Just because so many people already gave it energy, just because so many lives reflect the influence, or like the correlation of these different archetypes, of these subjects, whatever, right? So I don't think it's a coincidence when I randomly meet someone at a party, they tell me their star sign, I'm like, so subconsciously, like, your biggest dream in life is this and that, and you kind of wanna mingle, but when you're true to yourself, actually what you want to do is like this abstract idea of how to live life. And they're like, oh fuck, how do you know me so well? It's like, I did my homework, because I understand that it's an abstract idea, and however you want to paint your reality, that is up to your free will. So this is where we come to fate versus free will. And believe me, I studied philosophy for like 8 semesters or whatever, or more even, and I was really against all the mystic bullshit. Like, I was eating like the religious students for breakfast, and like, you can't prove that, blah 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 blah. I was quite an asshole back then. Maybe still am, some would say. I don't know. But I came to realize that it's just all like, it's different languages for basically the same story, and you kind of have to, you have to deal with this idea. So many people are subject to it, and it's proven right every time and time again, if you just know how to work with an abstract idea, right? It's like no, a Scorpio is not prone to bullshit everyone. That is not how Scorpio energy works, right? Just like a Cancer is even like probably more courageous than most people think, because Cancer is actually a cardinal sign. It is an initiator. It is like pulling through, right? Just to, it's confronting you with emotionality, right? So a Cancer is quite progressive, actually. That's why it's always the crybaby, right? because the Cancer is always the one that just has to say something, right? The Pisces is not going to say something. The Pisces is just off. It's like, ooh, I don't like the climate, bye, you know. The Scorpio would be then like, have you actually realized that this climate is inhabitable? And the Cancer would be like, how can you do this to me? You know, that that would be just the way the different signs work. And that's a beautiful thing, how to understand this. It's like, it's a system of 3/4. If we realized, like, pretend that last episode we realized how to come from duality into into 4 elements. Or maybe I can explain it, or as I understand it, is like you have duality. You have a progressive and a receptive force. Call it yin and yang, or black and white, or masculine, feminine, whatever you want to call it. You have a progressive and a receptive concept, right? And now they come into manifestation one step further into density from the metaphysical realm into what we would call the physical realm, so to speak. Just not exactly right, but bear with me here. It's like fire as the progressive force and water as the receptive force or concept would then morph and switch gears into air as a progressive internal force and earth as a receptive external force, right? So the initial impulse is internal with the fire, and the water receives it, but it's still both spiritual or astral or whatever, right? Then it comes further into manifestation, and then you have on the internal the manifested masculine, which is the mind that tries to, pierce through the bullshit and make sense of it all, which is a very progressive force. And the body, right? The earth, the materialistic, that which receives it, that which needs nurturing, and which is also nurturing itself. So that kind of concept, right? So this is how we come from duality into the 4 elements, because it's actually duality playing out in a different way. When you're like, duality one step further into density makes it the 4 elements, right? When it's basically switching gears. You have the yin in the yang and the yang in the yin. Maybe I do have I do have something written down for this. It's too bright. It's just too bright. Can you see this? Maybe. No. Fucking hell. How can I make you see this? Like this. I have to do something with this fucking light. Whatever. What I was going for is the yin and the yang and the yin. Meaning that there is a point, a black dot in the white, and a white dot in the black. And that is basically the fire and the water building the astral, and then further into density, they flip their polarity, and the progressive becomes the internal, which is trying to pour through into reality, which then receives it. All right. So how does it relate to the star signs? Is, we have star signs of the different elements, and it's basically a system of 3/4, right? So you have, or 4/3, whatever. It's basically a system of 3 times 4, right? You have 4 elements, and of each you have 3 modes, which could be then like the what is it? The Holy Trinity, right? The Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Mother, or Holy Ghost, or whatever the fuck ever. I need to go into that more, but it's the system of 3 that acts upon that system of 4, and further defines it, right? So then you have the 3 modes, which are basically like, you have the cardinal, which is the initiator, the core progressive force of the suit, of the element. Then you have the fixed, which is the more receptive part of the element, the one that is incorporating it um, in a in a more passive way. And then you have the mutable, which is a bit of both, right? Which is the marriage of the two in a sense. And how does that translate? It's like, yeah, you take the core concept of the given element, for example, water, and you think about how they would express whatever there is to be expressed. And I always say is like how, for water signs, for example, right? How would a Cancer say, I love you, right? A Cancer would just like, the cardinal, it would just plain out tell you. The Cancer would say, I love you by trying to make you feel good, and always trying to do something for you. And do you feel good? Can I help you? It's like showing you, telling you, crying, whatever, expressing that emotion. How would the Scorpio tell you, I love you? He would talk about it, or they. Like the Scorpio would just talk about it. It's like, I came to the conclusion, all my emotions and thoughts in mind, I guess I love you. I guess the feeling I have for you is more profound than something I ever experienced or anything I ever experienced. How would the Pisces tell you I love you? He would say nothing. He would send you like a bouquet of roses or whatever and hope you get the message, or leave you with chocolate and hope you get the message, right? Because they're like mutable. They're not to be. They're a little bit of everything, and depends on the energy that they modify, right? So where the Pisces with their emotions is very sensitive, and that's why they're like on and off and very protective of their emotions. Like, okay, I don't have to engage by, or this is something I can flourish in. They're like really going like a Pisces. Again, a metaphor to be taken literally. So the Cancer would just blatantly tell you, I love you, and cry in front of you and make like a big scene of it. The Scorpio would calmly discuss the matter with you, why their feelings are so profound. And the Pisces would just try to show you and hope you get the message, but doesn't really go further. For the fire signs, for example, is like how a Leo, for example. Okay, Leo is fixed right there, right? What's the cardinal sign? Aries. Aries just moves, Aries just like, okay, I'm going. Are you coming, guys? Whatever, no fucks given. The Leo would stand there trying to motivate the pack because they're a little more inclusive. They're a little more, they're the fixed sign. There needs to be this connection to the one which is also a giver, right? Like there is a receptive or a passive or a nurturing part in there, the feminine, right? So that is how the Leo takes that very progressive fire energy and makes it a little more feminine, a little more nurturing, caring about the pack. The Sagittarius doesn't give two fucks. The Sagittarius is like, if there's a change of plans, the Sagittarius just changes their plans. It's just like, okay, so we do this then, whatever, So they're a little bit of everything. They can switch gears quite quickly. Where the Aries, for like, if the plans suddenly change, the Aries would be like, damn it, what do I do now? Well, okay, and then just, use the energy to break through some other wall and shit, whatever. But this is how the modes work within the different elements, right? So it's just like kind of summing it up. The modes work like this. The cardinal sign is the initiator. The fixed sign is the nurturer. And the mutable sign is, well, mutable, right? Is both, is the product of both. So, or can be either or. And that's how they kind of relate. For air signs, air is mind, right? So do I get it right? I do have it. I don't want to go through all of them now, but it kind of makes sense. Where does the air start? Which one's the air? Libra. Okay, Libra is the cardinal. Yeah, makes sense. Libra is the cardinal. That's always for the underdog, trying to understand both sides and kind of looking for the harmony in there. Fair enough. Aquarius. Aquarius is the fixed, the one that tries to understand rather than the the Libra would more care about restoring harmony. The Aquarius would more care about understanding why it is out of whack, right? And the Gemini would be a bit of both, like sort of indecisive, or like, yeah, I understand your argument, I actually don't really know what to do, but maybe let's just talk about it a little further. So that would be the air version of it. And then for the for the Earth, that quite similar, right? What is the cardinal? Earth. Taurus is the fixed one, right? Then you have the Virgo is the mutable, and the cardinal would be yeah, Capricorn, of course. And yeah, well, makes sense, right? So Capricorn is the cardinal, is the initiator, is the one that wants to achieve and build, right? And the Taurus is the one that needs routines and tries to sustain, right? And feels like in their element when things are running smoothly. And well, who doesn't? But it's of importance to the Taurus, right? And then the Virgo would be a little bit of everything. It's like the structure and the chaos. The Virgo can work with chaos as long as they can like complete the structure in a sense. They see it, they know how to work with it, yada yada yada. And so a bit of both, right? Flexible. So this is how the 3/4 works in astrology. And yeah, one could argue that, you know, well, you cannot go wrong guessing people's star signs in a sense, because we all are a bit of everything, right? Does make sense. And it depends. In different situations, different things come out. That is basically what the birth chart is all about, right? Right now, I'm very much coming from my Aquarius moon because I want to understand everything. And once I understood that I don't actually want to understand it, but rather just like, or I don't need an answer, I just love the question, I just want to talk about it. That's when I kind of started doing something like this here, right? It's just like, okay, like I don't want to like debate people to like get them off their game or make a point or destroy them or win an argument. I don't want to win, really, like not an argument for that matter. I just want to talk about it, right? Because at some point I realized everything is true, right? Everything is true, and most of the time not for the reasons people think. And astrology is just the same. It's like, yeah, it does make sense when you think about it that giant, like giant pieces of metal, rock, whatever, in orbit are somehow influencing like our magnetic field. That does make sense. But even if someone proved me wrong on this one, like just being like, here are the numbers, they measured the field, no influences whatsoever, so what now? I'd be like, well, my argument is not based on that. My argument is not based on the physical measurement of magnetic fields. My argument why astrology is part of the Logos is simply because it's there and it has been there for years and years and years, and people have given so much energy to it, and it's proven sort of right in so many ways. It is, at the very least, a set of concepts that is to be worked with, that we can work with. Now, if one chooses not to work with a given set of concepts, that's totally on them. That's like, okay, cool, then you work with a different set of concepts to make sense of your world. However, I choose to work with a bit of everything, and that's why I love the tarot so much, because, well, it's coming from the Kabbalah. It has astrology in there, the yin yang, the four elements. Everything is in there. So that's why I love the symbolism, because like it or not, it is there. It is part of reality. Someone put it into the program, so it is something to be reckoned with, or at least something you can use to make sense of it all, or to color your experience or whatever. So whether you like astrology or not, if it's a strong, like if it's a part of your life in many aspects, chances are that it's already part of your program. So chances are that you will realize that it's sort of true. I would say that if you don't believe in it and it's not already like or all around you, then you would always find a reason to doubt it. You would always be like, yeah, see, but this is why, that this is the, the reason for this is this and that, and you could always explain it away, right? Because your reality is essentially your reality. You're projecting whatever it is. Universe basically giving you a set of concepts where you're like, this is something you can use to figure it all out, and you'll be like, nah, I do believe in this scientific method or in this metaphysical method, whatever. But everything is true. Everything is just a set of rules, right? Everything is just a set of rules you could use to play your game by, right? And then the question just is, how are you already integrated into the program? Are you already linked in the program, right? Are you subconsciously already believing the narrative, and then your mind tries to catch up with it, right? And then you're proving yourself wrong in a sense, which happens all the fucking time, right? Because your mind is also layers and layers and layers of conditioning and beliefs, right? So if your higher mind or lower mind, for that matter, whatever, um, is already decided that they're into the metaphysical, the mystical, the like the astrology, whatever, and then you suddenly start seeing ghosts or realize that you like planets, or, whatever the fuck it is, then it is something that is already part of your program, and you're adapting to it as a conscious being, right? Your consciousness adapting to the subconsciousness or the subconscious. So you're already linked to the program. But if well, if it's just a faint idea of something, I believe that it doesn't have to be